going on, guys? Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I'm sitting with Cameron Selby. And today we're going to talk about the Thursday Night Football Buccaneers at Falcons game. Very exciting game. Has a lot of implications. A couple teams that are, coming into the year we thought were going to be, well, of course, we thought they were going to be 1-2 in the division. We didn't know that the Buccaneers were going to have the better record at this point at 3-1. The Falcons being 2-2. This game has a lot of implications, though, and I'm excited to get it going.
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of weeks have been just kind of unfun divisional games. Obviously, the Patriots one and Jets one worked out very well for us because it ended up having the optimal line just wrong captain with our first look, and we recorded that. It was fun if you tuned in. And then last week started off well, and then Dallas just couldn't get off the field defensively, and the Giants just kept on going and going, and it was like an even basically week, or from a lineup perspective, just because after the CeeDee Lamb touchdown, I was looking great. Obviously, with Neighbors, I don't remember if you showed if you ended up winning, but it was kind of a mixed bag of things.
So truly, in that game, I wish we would have kind of combined what we were thinking, because if we would have had Neighbors and Wandale in that game and no Daniel Jones, that was actually the optimal line.
Right.
And we were right there talking about it. I didn't expect Greg Joseph to do so well. I didn't
19 points.
Yeah, we weren't going to have that guy, but everybody else, for the most part, we were pretty much on. We just had it, how we had separated it was just right there. And if we would have got one line where we made it together, which maybe we need to do that more often, we will, make it
but
better
at the
lines.
end of the day, it's just kind of one of those things where we have two very strong starts for Thursday night slates,
Right.
One very bad one with the Miami Buffalo game, and then last week where it started out well, they ended up kind of being meh. But at the same time, we're way up.
Yeah.
Just because of two big takedowns.
And
that's kind of, if your cash percentage is 22%, and not only are you hitting 50%, but when you're hitting big. And we're not even doing 150 max. We're doing hand builds, and we're doing that. So that's kind of how it's been fun. And I think this slate is actually a very, very fun one to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into it. Let me pull it up on the screen now. Looking at it here. Excuse me. We'll talk about the one. We'll talk about the the away team first. We'll talk about Tampa Bay. Make sure I got that right. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Baker Mayfield, all these guys up top. Let me put them in there. If you're going to talk about their passing game, of course you're going to have Baker, but I'm not going to throw him up there. Rashad White is somewhat of a pass catcher. I mean, you can definitely make that point. Some Q tags down here.
So I don't even think you should even put in McMillan or Palmer, because they will not play.
You don't believe so? Okay.
They didn't practice today. It's a short week. They're both, one's a concussion and then the other one's a hamstring injury. So I don't expect either to play. Mike Evans was a DNP through the walkthrough on Monday, but he was limited today. So I think he will be playing in some capacity tomorrow or Thursday, but it could be a limited thing. But I think he'll be available. The biggest thing that helps is Sterling Shepard, former college teammate of Baker Mayfield. He was signed off the practice squad, and then obviously Jalen McMillan was out, and then Trey Palmer was playing well, got concussed. Sterling Shepard came in and all of a sudden was just killing it from a snap share perspective. Goes 3 for 51, and then I guess they fell asleep pricing these guys, because usually when you have injuries and you expect people to be out, you kind of price people up accordingly, and they just forgot to. And so he's going to be very chalky, but he's a guy that makes a lot of things work, especially
absolutely.
When the most expensive guy is 10-2. And so you can really fit 4 of those guys up top and with him in a reasonable selection. And so it's very easy to have a duped line. So we'll be having to try to talk about ways to be different later on, but he just makes so much work, and he's really the only one that I'm even considering below 3,000.
Perfect. The other guys on here, you've got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, of course. Both of them have had, ceiling games that you have to have on slates like this. So these are guys that we're going to definitely be mentioning and talking about. And then you have Cade Otton, who is the tight end, one of our probably best plays in that range by far, because of just the price he did well last week.
Click on his game log, because the first 2 weeks kind of frustrating. 2 targets, 1 catch, 5 yards through 2 games, but then each of the last 2 weeks, 8 targets, 9 targets,
right? And
then obviously with the 2 guys being out as the third and fourth options, and Rashad White getting less snaps,
yes,
it's just like there's more targets opening up for him. And he's always been a very serviceable and good tight end. He just hasn't had the consistent, looks, targets, and production, but he's on the field all the time. And, 4,000 is just very, very reasonable for him. I don't even know if you need to go that low with the Sterling Shepard. Obviously, he's my preference, just based on value alone. But if you didn't want to go that way and go 100% in the 3 max of Sterling Shepard, very easy to get to, and you can still afford everything you need to up top.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that this makes a lot of sense. I do want to talk about, of course, we kind of need to talk about where Baker Mayfield is an option if you're going to play any of these guys, of course. But I want to talk about the running back situation here. Rachaad White and Bucky Irving. I'll have the snap counts up right here with me. Rachaad White got 58% of the snaps this last game, and Bucky Irving got 42%. That is trending down for Rachaad White and up for Bucky.
They coincidentally had the same exact stat line last week. Both had 10 carries, 49 yards, but Bucky Irving was the guy that scored.
Yep.
And then on top of that, he's getting the passing work as well. So it's not like Rachaad White is getting all the pass work, and this is a David Montgomery situation where you just get the goal line work and that's it. He's the dual threat, but he's being way more efficient with his touches, whereas Rachaad White, until last week, he was really averaging like 2 yards a carry. Not impressive at all, and that's kind of our hit that we've always had on him. He just got all the snaps in volume because last year he was just 80-90% of the snaps every single week, and he was just the only guy.
Right.
Well, now if you're saying that he's going to be a 50-50 split and they're just going to ride the hot hand, Bucky Irving basically every single week has been the hotter hand.
Yes, absolutely. I think that, talking about these two guys, we just don't necessarily, we've never really thought Rachaad White was good at football. We just knew he was going to get all the volume. And so if he's not getting all the volume, he shouldn't be 6,800 and in a situation like this. But Baker, of course, like we said, is in play. Is there? Would you like to talk about the kickers or the defense in any way?
I think both are viable.
Okay.
I don't know. I
kickers
think
are viable this year.
I'd say, yeah, kickers especially. But if you need to throw in the kicker, this is a type of slate where it's a positive offensive environment. This guy, Chase McLaughlin, 10 points in 3 of the 4 games this year. So very reasonable when he does, but then he had 1 point, didn't kick a field goal in the blowout against Denver, but it was a weird game script for they weren't going to kick field goals down 3 touchdowns.
Right, absolutely.
And then Younghoe Koo, he had 20 points this past weekend and the game-winning field goal against the Saints. Don't mind him. He's expensive, but, again, he's averaging 10 points a game.
He's 9 for 9.
If you're on
100%.
a showdown slate getting 10 points from a kicker, it's cool. Like, they're both viable. I probably would avoid defenses in this game because I actually expect probably to go the over, which is a 43-point total right now. But, both kickers, like I said, viable if you want to make either of them work. I don't have a lean on either one.
Yeah. Talking about Atlanta, you got ahead of me. We got to talk about this guy at the top up here first, I think. And I guess I can put his backup in there just so we can kind of get a little look. But Bijan has not necessarily hit his over like we'd expect. He hasn't done anything crazy. He had 7 attempts last game, which is just pitiful. It was a close game too. It was a close game, and I just don't get it. But fine.
I know he was limited with his hamstring injury. He was not on the injury report at all, so that may have happened during the game. Maybe some tightness or something. But he's practice limited like all week, so he's going to play. But on a short week, I don't know how, if he'll get the 80% snap share that he had the first 3 weeks. Obviously, it came down to about a 60-40 last week, and Tyler Algier has always been very efficient when he gets touches. And so last week, I think even despite Bijan, this wasn't like a out of nowhere Tyler Algier gets 19 touches. They were about the same, but look, 10 touches, 80 yards.
Yep.
So he just hasn't scored this year, which is why his fantasy points per game has been low. But honestly, we'll be talking props in a little bit, but he has a prop that is my favorite on the slate for the night. But yeah, Tyler Algier, very reasonable as well. It's 4,800. I thought he'd be a little priced up because of the Q tag. But yeah, both are viable. Both are reasonable. They're at home. I see both of them having very even split in terms of a workload, but that doesn't mean you should be fading Bijan at any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I think I'm going to say that Bijan gets his normal workload just for a natural build, because I think that he will end up being around 70%, which if he does, that's his kind of lower than what he's actually normally gets. But yeah, I think that his tightness hopefully will be gone by game time. Talking about receivers, and for Kirk Cousins, we got to talk about Drake London, Darnell Mooney, maybe Ray McLeod, who's got a Q tag next to his name at the moment. And that's it, basically.
That is it.
Where's Kyle Pitts? I'll add Kyle Pitts.
We talk about the last 3 weeks. Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod, and Drake London, all of them over 90% snap share. So they play 3 receivers a lot, and it's only those 3. So Kadarius Hodge came in for a couple snaps last week, but he hasn't played more than 3 in a game.
Yeah.
You can't play any of these with confidence. And then even if you want to talk about Kyle Pitts, I'm sadly just giving up. I don't know what to say other than they just won't give him the ball. And on top of that, he's not creating separation and all that stuff as well to make it easier for things like that. So it's just been frustrating. But on a slate like this, when it's 5,600, it's hard to – there's not really a fade based on price this week. Even Darnell Mooney at 72, he's had 3 really strong games the last 3 weeks. But Kyle Pitts, just the by default lack of production. He's just not getting any consistent workload. And last week, 0 catches on 3 targets. No more than 5 targets in any of the games this year. He's just 3 catches. No,
just can't trust him. I cannot trust him.
Can't trust him, and it's sad. Maybe a better situation will fix him, or maybe he's just kind of a broken guy that we just kind of gotta call our shot and just be like, hey, it wasn't a good call. Yeah. But also, we can acknowledge we were not nearly as high on him as we were somebody that was like, oh yeah, pick him 4th overall ahead of Jamar Chase, and it's a very viable thing. We were never in that boat.
Actually, I wanted to mock Micah Parsons, and I remember going back and forth at Atlanta because they had no pass rush. They still have less pass rush than they've need. And so, yes, of course, during that draft, I wanted Micah Parsons to go there because he was the best athlete on the defensive side of the ball. But they did go Kyle Pitts, and he has not lived up to it at all.
And then Drake London, he's the clear wide receiver 1 on the Falcons. He had a slow start week 1 against Pittsburgh. They couldn't really get anything going. But since then, 6 targets every week. 6 receptions every week, rather. By far the most. He had the game-winning touchdown against Philly.
Mm-hmm.
He scored against Kansas City as well, and then reasonable 6 for 64 against New Orleans. All decent corners that he's going up against as well. So Tampa Bay, obviously, weak spot has been the secondary so far. He's in a good spot, and I was actually surprised that he was under 9,000.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I was going to say. But let's do you have anybody else for Atlanta that you want to talk about that I didn't say? I know that there's just not very many players.
There's just the only one that I want to bring up is Charlie Warner, because 3 of the 4 games he's playing at least 30% of the snaps. He has no targets each of the last 3 weeks, but it's a showdown slate, and if you're playing 15, 20 snaps a game, you could fall into a reception. He's under 1,000. That's the only reason.
AJ Barner caught a touchdown last night. He has 1 catch on the year, and it was for 4 yards and a touchdown.
Exactly.
So it's possible, like you said.
Yeah, again, it's just purely a snap thing because, their wide receiver 4 is not playing more than 3 snaps a game. Ray McLeod, if he is out, if you want to click on him and his thing, so he was limited today. So back-to-back limited sessions. So typically, if you're limited, you don't DNP, you're probably going to play. He had a really strong, consistent start to the year. His price hasn't rose at all. So he's still playable at 3,400.
Yep.
Don't anticipate him playing, but that was the only way that we were going to even consider any other value options for Atlanta was if he was out. Obviously, if they were playing somebody 90% of the snaps, somebody that is 1,000 is going to fall into that.
Yeah.
And then it's a similar thing to Charlie Warner.
Casey Washington or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, so now that we got through that, let's talk some game script. I want to see what you have to say about this game and what you think. I think it's a very tough game to predict by game script wise, in my opinion.
Yeah, so with me, I'm saying 24-20 is the final score. I think offensively, from a fantasy perspective, it'll be, more inclined. It's not going to be just an ugly 24-20 where, you're scoring points, but just not putting up numbers and stuff like that. Coin flip of a game. They play each other twice in the next 4 weeks, so it's going to be interesting in that regard. Both teams playing well. it's a coin flip. You said the same thing with yours. We actually have different results, but I don't think that is going to make us be targeting different people because of the game script and the prediction of who's going to win.
Yeah, I think that so you have Atlanta winning. I actually have Tampa Bay winning, like you said, but I have 2017, so we're basically Atlanta didn't score that extra touchdown in my prediction. But like I said, no confidence. I think Tampa Bay is better on offense, and they have too many pass catchers for Atlanta to end up stopping. Close game, but I give the Baker over Kirk side of it. Basically, is my feelings on it.
Gotcha.
Looking at I'm looking at the must plays right now. We have 3 must plays, 2 for you and 1 for me. We talked about them a little bit. I'm going to let you go ahead and say yours though.
So one obviously is just purely a value perspective, and we'll talk about him in a second, which we already went over. But Chris Godwin has been by far the most consistent receiver. He's been everything you could have hoped for since he's returned to the slot. His biggest thing when, over the last 2 seasons, trying to get away from the Tom Brady old team when he was just being peppered with 12 targets a game, was that he wasn't scoring. But he's got 3 touchdowns through 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. I believe that's more than he had the entire season last year. So obviously last year with Mike Evans, like, Godwin was getting consistent targets as a wide receiver too, but anytime that they were looking to score, Mike Evans, I think he had 14 touchdowns on the year. Yeah, was one of the highest in the NFL. And Godwin, like I said, I think he only had 2, and then he's never been a huge red zone threat. But this year, the first 3 weeks, 3 touchdowns, 9 targets or 8 targets every single week. Just consistent volume. He's there every week. Last week was the only week he didn't score, but 6 for 69 was very, very reasonable for him. Mm-hmm. And they were playing from ahead the entire second half as well. So very good game. And I think if Atlanta is they have one of the better secondaries in the NFL. Best safety tandem, in my opinion, the AJ Terrell. We love him as a cornerback, but I don't think that he travels inside at all.
No, I don't believe so.
Exactly. So, and then with Mike Evans being limited, I just think this is another situation that as long as his health is good, he's going to just feast on the middle of this defense, and he should just be one of the safest plays on the entire slate.
Yep. Moving into the slot this year has really helped him be really good and be more productive. The other guy, let me scroll down. We talked about Sterling Shepard, but he's the other guy.
It's because we're anticipating Jalen McMillan and Trey Palmer to both miss. And last week, he basically took every snap when both of those guys were out. Mm-hmm. Off the practice squad, getting 50+% of the snaps, 3 for 51. He's 1,600. He just makes everything work if you want to play him. And so that's why I think I just want to be very heavy to him. If I'm playing a 3 max, he's in at least 2, but maybe even all 3.
Yeah, I think he makes everything okay. So I'd probably put him in all 3, like you're saying. Next up is my guy. I went back and forth on this guy, but I'm going to go with Drake London just because his volume has ramped up every single week. He had 3 targets in the first week, 7, 9, and then 12. I think that he is finally being considered the alpha by Kirk Cousins. That includes Kyle Pitts not being in the offense, and he's going to get most of the targets. If he does score a touchdown, he has the ability to get one of these ceiling games of 20+ points. And if that happens, he's already too cheap, but right. He also then could be in the range where he's a better play than both Godwin and Mike Evans possibly. Mm-hmm. So that's how I looked at it for sure.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that whatsoever. Like I said, I was pretty shocked. Not only like Mike Evans, I thought would have been higher. Bijan, I thought would have been closer to like 10-8 or something of that nature to make kind of ownership even out a little bit. But everybody being 10-2 and below, and then obviously both quarterbacks being affordable, and Drake London being over 9,000 despite being the clear wide receiver 1 on the team. You just don't really see that, especially when it's a good matchup. It's a good game environment for the passing game in itself. So, yeah, he's definitely going to be in probably 2, at least, of a 3 max that we would.
Yeah, completely agree. Your fade for the week. Let's hear it.
It's with the sad face. It's Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
I just can't trust him. He's finally going to go for 2 touchdowns and 100 yards when we don't play him, but it's okay. I'm just tired of investing my money hoping that he's going to finally have that breakout game. It's just not working. Call a spade. I just can't get over it. But price-wise, it's not unreasonable to play him. If you want to play him over a kicker or something of that nature, he's easy to fit in. So like price, it's okay. It's not saying completely fade him if you're doing a ton of lines, but he's just been the most consistent at being inconsistent
Right.
from a production perspective his entire career, and I just can't really get behind him this slate.
Yep, I completely agree. 4 games, 105 total yards. Not good enough for a guy that was the 4th overall pick. My guy is going to be Rashad White. I think that he is obviously losing touches. I think that maybe we see a switching to. I'm sorry. Why am I? I can see his face. Bucky Irving. I think we might see him becoming the premier back. Like you said, he has the pass work. I just don't love the situation. I hate the efficiency from Rashad White. We don't think he's a good running back. I think I'm just ready to fade him and say that someone else is going to get the opportunities instead of him.
Yeah. So I mean, like obviously, Atlanta has been formidable against the run game this year, but Rashad White is just not efficient. If you go back to his game log, I mean, he had 10 for 49, which was a season low in snaps, and only getting 13 opportunities. And he was finally efficient, but the week before, 2.8 yards a carry, 3.6 a catch, less than 2 yards a carry the week before, 2 yards a carry the week before that. And it's just like, if you're not getting the guaranteed touches,
yeah,
I'm just not going to play you.
I also think maybe we just need to think of him as better as a backup. There are players that are just better as backups. They need a 40% snap share. They need to be a change of pace type of guy like he was in prior years with Leonard Fournette. So I think that is maybe the biggest thing in my personal opinion with him. But yeah, let's get to building some lines. Of course, you're gonna actually let me give you a second to talk about your contrarian play. We kind of already looked at him.
And again, it's interesting because I don't really know how this ownership is going to portray, but Cade Otton, another kind of I just consider discount based on getting 17 targets the last 2 weeks.
At 4,000,
and he still hasn't fallen into the end zone yet. Without the 2 receivers there, that also gives a benefit to him. And if Rashad White's not getting 6 targets, that's another possible 1 or 2. 4,000 is just very cheap. I don't know if people are going to gravitate towards him just because the kickers are viable. Sterling Shepard should be chalky if both of those wideouts are out.
Right.
And so it's like you don't need to play Sterling and Cade Otton, or you don't need to go that far down. So, that's kind of – I don't know where his ownership is going to fall. It's going to be under 30%, but if it's 28, that's hard to say it's contrarian.
Right.
But I think the ownership will be pretty spread out because everybody's kind of affordable in this league.
Yep, everybody is affordable when you have the starting running back for Atlanta under 10,000 and Drake London or 9,000, $10,000 for Chris Godwin and 10-2 for Mike Evans. So let's build some lines. My first line, I'll do mine first because I think it's easier that way. I'm gonna build something in honor of Tampa Bay, of course. Having them winning. Let's not put you there. You're going to be the captain, my guy. So we got Chris Godwin of cap. Okay. We're going to take Baker and pair them. I want Drake London in my line. He's my must play, so I got to put him in there. I'm also going to take Bijan and put him in my line. I got 4 of the top 6 guys, I guess, expensive wise, money wise, and I threw them all in there. And then we're going to go down and we're going to grab Cam's contrarian play and throw. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not right. I had that line. That was a line I was doing. That's a different line. I'm going to put the kicker in there for more correlation. And then I'm going to get the guy in Sterling Shepard who is, the easiest click on the slate possibly.
Well, I mean, it's hard to follow that because those are my same 6.
Oh, perfect.
My line had Bijan and captain, which both of you can afford. That was my first look. So
beautiful.
Very good that we're not even communicating about it and we have the same 6 to start. That's always makes you feel good when we're talking to slate. I mean, when we talked to week 1, Kansas City, Baltimore, we were on the same exact page with the tournament plays, the contrarian plays, and the guys to do the captains, all that stuff. So really we're like, all right, Bijan or Godwin at captain. The tiebreaker was who we picked to win, and it's the same 6. So that's really fun. I guess if we're going to build some more looks, I'd like to try to see if we can get a double quarterback in there.
Okay.
And just see where we can kind of go. I mean, you can keep Baker, put Kirk in. You got to pair them both with Godwin and London. I would say because of this, let's pretend that Bijan is going to be limited, so we can have
Hold him
him
out.
as the fade in this game.
Well, actually, if you wanted him, you still have 3,200. If you
captain.
a captain. My bad. Who do you want a captain? If this is our line, would you rather the Atlanta side or the?
For now, let's put a Drake London at captain just because it gives us a couple extra bucks, and if, I don't know if we'll even need it, but for now, let's just do it, and then we can always switch to Godwin if need be. Honestly, if I'm thinking from like a ceiling or a floor perspective, I don't know if Godwin is worth 1,200 more than him per se.
No, I agree.
But I think Godwin will be the higher owned at captain, and so that's kind of my mindset is you get a little bit more money to save, and then also you get the discounts.
I'm gonna put this guy in there,
and then you can afford
7K,
and you go right to Bucky, right?
Yep. We're going to skip off Rachaad White. That'll be the contrarian-esque play compared to, because I don't really know who's going to be more owned in between the two of them. I would expect it would be Rachaad White.
If people pay attention, it should be Bucky.
Well, yeah, but
it should be.
Snap count wise, it's still on one side, you know. But as it trends, most people like trends, so we're gonna get on the Bucky side.
Even with this, like 600 remainder, I think that's just enough to afford a Godwin at captain line.
Yeah, let's try
the same 6. I'm almost positive that's how math works.
$0.
But again, $0, so it's going to be duped. So going the option of leaving some money on the table, it's always okay to leave money on the table on a slate similar to this when it's offensively inclined. So that's another fun build. It's going to be really easy to get to a 3 max for us this week in terms of how we're feeling about these.
Even
guys
could do more if you wanted to go into the 20 max hand building, but we normally don't try to do that on these types of slates. We try to stay away, but I think since the pricing is so low, I think you could do that. But yeah, what else? What other line would you like to try? Who else would you like to throw in there?
So I want to try to see if we can do Algier in a line, just because let's pretend the Bijan being limited, and if I can guarantee 14 touches for Tyler Algier at 4,800, like I'm completely fine with that.
Yeah. Let's say we want Godwin, we want London, and I'm going to go down and grab.
I would say probably the top 3 captains clearly on this slate are going to be London, Godwin, and Bijan in some way, shape, or form. And then I bet you Mike Evans might be a little. I don't know if his ownership as a whole is going to be low, but I think from the captain perspective, I think they'll be a little nervous with the Q tag, and then also with Godwin being more consistent so far this year.
Right.
I think they'll probably opt to put him in over Evans at captain, but he should still flirt with at least 40% ownership.
So I did this because I thought it made a lot of sense if we are going to do those players anyways. Yeah. So put Baker at captain, and then you get 3 of his pass catchers. That is always a way. If you're going to play a quarterback at cap, like you kind of want to get as many pass catchers as you can and a kicker and do all those things. So I think
even if you don't like Algier, you can fit McLaughlin.
Yeah.
At 5,000, have 0 remainder.
A nice 5-1.
Yeah.
I thought about that. Thought about a 5-1.
I think a 5-1 on either side of the ball is going to be uncommon on this slate. So it's very reasonable if you're gonna do that in this regard, because you have the wide receiver 1 for Atlanta, and then everybody else, you got the value on the slate. Shepard, you got both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and then obviously the guy that throws them the ball, the captain. And obviously 2 weeks ago when we did the takedown, we had the exact optimal 6, right? But who would have thought Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson were going to be outscored by Aaron Rodgers?
Right.
Well, kind of a similar thing here is like, who thinks Baker Mayfield for sure is going to outscore? But say Godwin just has 6 for 69 and just gets 12, 13 points. He doesn't score. And then Mike Evans is lower, but he gets the touchdown. And then he has one more touchdown to Cade Otton. All of a sudden, he's 3 touchdowns. He's over 20 points. He's optimal at the captain spot.
Yeah, and also like if he goes over 300 yards, he gets that +3 bonus. He gets all that other stuff too. So it's always an option. I think he probably let me switch over and just check his thing out. I bet he would have been optimal on this last slate because he had 31.88 fantasy points.
2 games over basically 30 points, and then Detroit was another good game based on a value perspective, getting 20, and then Denver obviously was the bad the bad game, but we're just gonna pretend that one didn't happen.
Right, but if he does go for his ceiling, which we know is over 30 points, he could easily be optimal because what does that mean if Chris Godwin is your captain and Baker's in your flex? And, Chris Godwin could easily go for 30 points, but let's say he goes for 24. Baker throws those 3 touchdowns, gets 300 yards. You're pretty confident that Baker's actually above Chris Godwin at that point. But yeah, so next thing we're going to do, guys, is we're going to go to our Prize Picks plays of the week. I'm going to share this tab. I got to go find them because I do not have my keyboard with me. But our first one will be on the Falcons side. I'm going to find him. Actually, they're both on the Falcons side. They're both Falcons running backs. So, first one, there you go.
Yeah, mine is Tyler Algier. They basically have allowed 7 running backs through 4 weeks to have over 33 rushing yards. And so Tyler Algier obviously got more of a 40-60 split in his favor. And again, he's always been efficient.
Mm-hmm.
But Tampa allowing a lot of rushing yards to running backs and running rushers as a whole so far this year. If Bijan is any kind of limited this week, and like I said, if you can guarantee me 8 to 10 carries from Tyler Algier, I don't think there's any way that he's under this mark.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm actually going to the other running back from the Atlanta Falcons. If he has no injury and we can kind of put him in that case where we think he's going to be good to play, I have to find him. There he is. There's that guy. Bijan Robinson. I'm going to take his over 24.5 receiving yards. This year, he has gone over this number 3 times. He only game that he didn't go over, he only had 2 receptions on 2 targets. Every other game he's had 4, 5, and 5 targets. He had 21 yards in that game that he didn't go over, which was Kansas City. I think that, just don't think that this number is high enough, especially for a guy that I think could go over 100 a total of 100 receiving yards if you had to.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at the game logs of Tampa, I know I said that they've given up 7 occasions of 35 rushing yards. Well, that's not a huge mark to even be eye-popping, but they gave up over 100 receiving yards to Washington between Eckler and Brian Robinson, other B-Rob. And then Detroit actually had 60-plus receiving yards against them between David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. The week after that, you had Javonte Williams go for 29, and then Jaleel McLaughlin and Tyler Bowdy only had 7 between them. But obviously had another one hit that mark. And then last week, Saquon Barkley, 32 receiving yards. So every single game, they've allowed at least one running back to also hit that mark. Bijan 3 out of 4 times has hit that, and he just was under the other time that he played Kansas City. So another solid number. Hopefully that he's healthy enough to hit that number. That's the only kind of concern for me. But there's not really a ton of props that stand out from this game's perspective. The other one I did want to shout out is Kate Otten being 28.5 receiving yards. I think is very interesting, coming off 17 targets the last 2 weeks. So worth the sprinkle. If you're trying to do a 3 max or a 3 pick for this slate, very interesting. And then obviously Underdog is doing a bunch of profit boosts throughout the month of October as well. I don't know how often they'll be doing free squares anymore to give us free money. But if you're going to get some boosts and stuff like that, you might as well just try to get more props out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget, guys, like Kate Otten, well, just going off of your pick, I really like this pick. Kate Otten is going to have more opportunities now that both Jalen McMillan and Trey Palmer are out. We kind of talked about that earlier. I think that it's very interesting for the 3.5 receptions also. As a pepper, exactly, because he had 6 and 7 in the last 2 games. It's just, I think that he has an opportunity to be a very good play on the slate. So let me stop the share. Hopefully we got everything covered for this game. Hopefully that our lines that we put up are going to be just as good as they've been in the past on this show. This is by far our most productive show of the week, based on our ROI coming back to us. So yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, I mean this shit only took 35 minutes. I mean, it didn't take any time at all. It's a very straightforward slate. I actually feel great about the slate going into it. It makes me feel even better that we had the same 6 with our first look. Obviously we had different captains, probably going to do both because why not? That's kind of what has worked out in the past, and so it's a fun slate. It should be a fun game, and if we're on the same page, that just makes it even better.
Exactly. So if you haven't, we will be posting our final picks and our final plays in our Discord. So if you haven't joined our Discord, please go join that. We have been doing spread picks. Our Dustin, he went 7-1 this last weekend, basically killing spread picks for college football. We also do DFS for all of the slates. We had Justin Fields as one of our favorite quarterbacks this week. He had 35 fantasy points, so we did win some money. Unfortunately, Rashee Rice got injured, and that hurt us a little bit, but that we definitely profited this week, and we will hopefully continue to profit.
Yeah, let's keep it going. The biggest thing was just kind of getting that main kind of bad juju off our backs, and we finally did this week. And unfortunately, it could have been even better if Rashee Rice, who was in a heavy amount of our lines, and he gets hurt in the first quarter without a stat.
Yeah.
But we had multiple lines that had possible first place potential.
Yes.
And for a main slate, that was really fun to see. But still profit nevertheless. But we can't thank you guys enough for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe. Be doing all that. Interact with us in the Discord as we're doing picks throughout the week. We're going to be doing community plays. We've done multiple 6 picks that have hit. From a prop perspective, Showdowns have killed it twice already this season. Maine, we finally got off and did very well this past week.
Yes.
And we do other slates as well. We don't have a lot to offer from like a line of builder perspective or merch yet, but we're trying to offer all we can, and the only thing we can do is our expertise and our lines that we create ourselves. So make sure to tune in, interact with us, tell us what you love, what you don't love, constructive criticism. We want all that. It's our first year covering the sport, and it's just been a fun time, and we just want to keep on growing this community like we have been.
Yeah, like Kim said, though, like we give all these picks and all this stuff, and all we ask in return is that you subscribe and come hang out with us. We're not asking for a lot. We just want to, have as many people as possible just being in here, talking with us, telling us why they think we're wrong or why they're appreciating us for being right. And hopefully going from here, we get as many people in this group as possible.
Yep.
So we will see y'all next time, and we appreciate it.